Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Rawl, and I am the Vice President of Member Engagement for the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome you on this beautiful Monday morning. I think the last time I was on a webinar, it was snowing. So thank you, Michigan, for a beautiful Monday morning. And we're pleased to be joined by Kate Snyder with Piper and Gold. And today we're going to be talking about stay connected and stay local. We know that with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's not necessarily business as usual, but we need to find a way to do business as much as possible. And Kate's going to share some really dynamic ideas to stay connected and engage with your audience today as we practice some social distancing and some virtual relationships. Just a couple of technical know-hows here. We are going to have Kate share her screen and hopefully have her video pop up as well. We are going to be doing utilizing the Q&A function at the bottom of your webinar screen. So if you have any questions, please just submit via the Q&A function, and I'll be monitoring those questions. We're going to leave 15-20 minutes here at the end for some Q&A with Kate. And with that being said, we will ask her to share her screen, and she will take us off.
Awesome. The pressure. I'm so nervous of the accidental awkward screen share. Okay, hopefully that is not an awkward looking screen share. If there is, chat me and let me know. But thanks for having me, everybody. I'm excited to be here at my house and share with you a little bit about ways that you can hopefully try to stay connected with your customers and clients and all that fun stuff. So first off, a little bit about me. Oh, just kidding. Go forward for me, my little friend. There I am. So just in case we can't get the video, the live video up in the corner to work, this is me. So I'm the principal strategist and founder of Piper and Gold Public Relations. We are a Lansing-based PR agency, and we focus on government, nonprofit, and small business communications, and in particular on leveraging communications to help create a more fair and equitable society and to help our clients really connect with people. So this topic today of connection is one that is very near and dear to my heart and extremely important to me. And so because of that, we're going to try something a little different here. If it doesn't work, we're just going to move right on. But we're going to try to make it so that you can actually see me while I give this PowerPoint. So I've tried something. Give me a little chat and let me know if it actually worked and if you can actually see my face up in the upper right hand corner or somewhere on your screen. If not, we're not going to spend a lot of time figuring out life. Heck yeah, I figured something new out in Zoom after 5 weeks of spending all day every day here. Thank you very much. So pro tip, click the pin your video 3 dots and you too can get to show up over your own face. This is very meta right now. So next up, let's talk about, So before we can talk about connection, we really need to focus on understanding about communicating during a crisis. Crisis communications, of course, is like a specialty, and typically crisis communications will involve an organization or a couple of organizations. But right now, it's all of us. We are all communicating during a crisis. And because of that, our regular rules of crisis communications, which typically we call the 4 R's, they focus on regret and restitution and basically how we are going to make things right. Well, in this current situation, it's not necessarily anyone's fault or a thing that anyone in particular did that landed the entire globe in this pandemic situation. So instead, we can learn some traditional things from crisis communications, even if we're deviating a little bit. And some of those big things are really to focus on empathy, focus on your values, and focus on your people. Because of that, sometimes that does mean that communications has to take a backseat. There's only so much that all of us can do realistically, and everyone is under emotional duress. Small business owners are facing a lot. And so give yourself some grace. But with that being said, when you can, try to prioritize. Be sensitive in your communications, recognize the environment in which you're communicating. Do your best to be an observer of what the tone and nature of communications in your particular industry and with your clients happens to be right now. I highly, highly, highly encourage you, as we talk about these different approaches to connection, to get a second, a third, a fourth opinion on everything, and be cognizant of your own echo chamber, meaning be cognizant of the fact that you may not be getting broad perspectives or opinions if the majority of your communication is with people that you already know on highly curated social media channels. But also, don't be afraid to stick to your values, right? That is one of the most critical things at a time like this. Communicate your values, live your values, and recognize that there could be consequences of those values, but really, isn't that what values are for? To figure out what you stand for, what you will accept, what you will not accept, and to lead with your values and to live your values. And so articulate what those values are as a company if you haven't done that already, if they need to be revisited, if it's been far too long before since you've thought about those values. Now is a great time to make sure that you and your team are on the same page about who you are as a company, who you are as an organization, what you stand for, what it is you're trying to do, and make sure that that's what's guiding your decision making. And also make sure that that's what you are sharing with people. So right now, we are talking a lot about what we don't have. Many of us no longer have access to our physical locations. Those that do, they look and feel very different right now. We might not even have active operations, right? Many small businesses are fully shut down, have furloughed all but a handful of employees, and or an owner or a CEO or president or manager is basically handling everything. So what do you have to connect with other people? You have the internet, of course. Screen time is skyrocketing right now, right? People are spending exponentially more time online, and particularly on mobile in their non-work hours or for those who aren't working. And so what you do have is social media, you have email, you may have a company blog, or if not, you've got tools like Medium that allow you to produce content and share information. You may have e-commerce or a way to create e-commerce for your company. And thinking about what you do have and the ways that you can authentically stay connected to people is what I want to focus on today, as opposed to what we don't have. So let's talk a little bit about some trends. Right now, one of the biggest trends that we're seeing in digital dialogue, which is that sort of what you do have place right now, is that people want human contact, even if that human contact is digital. So whether your business can make digital book recommendations, whether you can provide legal advice and counsel, whether you can give people tips for keeping their lawn alive until you can get back out there and help them. Whether you can provide cocktail recipes, whatever it is that you can do, people want connection, and they want to connect with people, not necessarily with companies or brands. And that's going to be a big theme as we talk a little bit more about what you can do. People want to connect with people right now. And that may change how some of us have been marketing and how some of us have been communicating in what we say, what we do, and how we say and do it. So we're going to talk about some specific ways that you can capitalize. I guess I hate using words right now like capitalize or opportunity when there is, genuine tragedy and pain and grief and sacrifice happening right now. But I also recognize that for those of us who are trying to keep a business alive, trying to keep a nonprofit moving forward and ensure that it's here when people slowly but surely and gradually emerge from this pandemic, for a lot of us, it does feel all consuming. And so recognizing that there are greater tragedies, there are bigger things happening in this world, but also focusing on what we can control and the things that we can do is okay. It's a guilt I've heard a lot of business owners grappling with themselves. It's a lack of awareness I've seen from other business owners that is can be challenging to overcome. But this emphasis and this focus on what we can do amidst everything else is this weird dual place that we just have to learn to live in. So what can we do? What can we do? And there's a lot that we can do. I know that you're probably exhausted, whether it's an exhaustion from boredom, from worry, you're scared, you might be caring for a loved one from afar or doing porch drop-offs, you might have family and essential worker positions, you might be valiantly attempting to homeschool your kid or try to run a daycare and a business at the same time. I am currently tanking at that one. You might be running an essential services business and you might be afraid for your employees and for your clients and doing everything you can to protect them. It is heavy and it is a lot, and the burden on the shoulders of those in small business and leadership should not be diminished. It's not a competition. So even though some of us may not be on the front lines necessarily, it's okay to recognize where you're at and accept that and be okay with that. So you got a lot on your plate, and I feel you and I hear you and I understand. So there's not a lot left in the tank for a lot of us to try to take on more, but we have to innovate. The way to stay connected and the way to make it through this time is to innovate. So we have to focus on what we can and what we can do to stay connected. Can you ship things? Can you provide advice electronically? Can you provide encouragement? Can you launch a new service? Can you launch a new product? Schedule time, lean on your team. And if right now you are in the absence of a team, lean on your friends and your family to motivate you. Hell, ask your kid for their ideas. Get outside of your own head and think about how we can innovate as a priority right now to be able to come out of this on the other side. The world is evolving. Literally, a virus has evolved. And so we have to evolve our businesses with this. And there may be some of these innovations that carry us through this time and that are very relevant moving forward. So give yourself time to innovate and make sure that it is a priority in this time. As you're thinking about how you can connect with people, the best way to connect is to provide them something they actually want or need. Okay, so one of the biggest trends that we're seeing right now is local pride. Stay connected by turning to your community and by being a part of your community. Truly think about those values of yours and ask, how can I be of service right now? Because this is bigger than profits. And I know we all want to keep our businesses going and healthy. I understand. And that thought can be all consuming, right? It's keeping so many people up at night. It's keeping us distracted during the day. It is hard and it's a lot. But we have to think about the bigger picture here, okay? We have to think about what we can do as a business, as a team to help our community and to get the community involved. There are businesses that are taking donations and allowing people to buy food for others, right? Shout out to Saddleback Barbecue. There are businesses that are organizing mask sewing networks like Seams in downtown East Lansing. There are businesses that have figured out ways to provide legal counsel, estate planning, and wills to worried, scared parents right now and to help them feel more secure in this time. Yes, think about what you can sell, but root that in your values and a greater purpose. Why are you here? What is it that you're trying to bring to people? And how does that provide them something they need right now? Whether it's entertainment, whether it is a service, whether it is a product that you can try to figure out how to get into their hands right now. You can try to figure out how to deliver differently. But turning to your community and being a part of your community is something that people want, and they want to know who you are and where you're from. They want to know what you're doing to help Lansing so that they can feel like they are in turn helping Lansing by helping you. And then use those tools and channels that we have: email, social media, postal mail, picking up the phone, and live your mission. So that leads us right into the fact you have got to stay in touch with people right now. Especially for those of you who are the hardest hit, who aren't in active operation or who have had to dramatically reduce your work. While innovating what you can do, even if what that isn't revenue producing, try to keep the long game in mind. I am someone that is notorious for playing the long game, for talking about the long game. And think about how to make it through right now, but also think about some of these non-revenue producing actions and ideas as things that will bear fruit later down the road. So think about how you can update people on what you are doing, even if it feels boring. Because here's the thing, not everybody works in your industry, and people love to see behind the curtains. So even if something feels boring, share it. Help people understand what you do, what your business does, and how they are a part of that. This connects back to that desire for human connection and that desire for local, right? When most people are ordering something off of Amazon or downloading a template for a service that they could be buying from a local company, they're not thinking about the back end. They're not thinking about the Amazon warehouse. They're not thinking about how these materials were created and what goes into it. And they're certainly not thinking about the people. And so let them think about your people, communicate. So are you doing inventory planning from your home? Are you working on a new certification that is going to let you serve people in a different way? Are you working on keeping the office plants alive? I am currently also failing at this. Give people a glimpse into what is happening. Let them see what you're doing, even if you might not necessarily think it's super interesting. People want that connection, and it's going to help them understand their food chains or what truly goes into the services and why service businesses charge an hourly rate. Let them see what it is that you are doing during this time, the research that you're doing, the planning that you're doing, or even just some of the more personal things that you're doing to get through this time. And for those of you who are hardest hit, who don't have teams right now, or who are independent practitioners to start off with, I recognize that this does fall on the owners mostly. And I wish I could wave a wand and make that different and protect you from having to do everything yourself right now when you're already stressed out. Remember, there is power in hearing directly from an owner or a manager of a business. So take heart in that and just do your best to keep reaching out via social media, to email, to do handwritten love letters, to do phone calls, and any other way that you can keep communicating with other people. Another thing I've been loving seeing on social media, Apple Market, which is just up the street from my house, every social media post, the person posting them, Tom, great job, Tom, signs off. It's no longer just a brand. It's a person telling us, we got a shipment today, we're unloading it. Let people get to know you, not just the brand. So for those of you who do still have teams in action right now, give people a chance to get to know your people. Now is a great time to spread the burden of communicating. If you articulate your values clearly, if you outline how you're helping people and what you're focusing on, it's time to let go a little bit and let other people help. Encourage people to write blog posts. Ask them to help with your social media content, including videos and photos of them working from home. Do Instagram takeovers with your different team members. Goldfish Swim School in Okemos is doing this right now, and different team members are going around and just showing their not currently at Goldfish Swim School days and answering questions and all those kind of things. Encourage your team members to share their expertise and to help by publishing LinkedIn articles. Ship everybody a few boxes of thank you cards and let them put those in quarantine for however long it takes them to feel safe opening those boxes, and then encourage them to write a note of appreciation, or if they don't have the time or resources for that, even a simple email to a different client every week or every day. Leverage your team to connect and stay connected and focus on the people behind the business, the people behind the brand. And here's where it's gonna get a little awkward. So one of the biggest trends that we are seeing right now is a desire for people to drop the facades and just be real, right? Like, how many Zoom calls have you been on that have been interrupted by a dog or a kid? I am shocked that a tiny human has not entered this frame yet. Kudos to my husband on that one. But if you think about it, right? Like, can you feel those personal and professional lines blurring? we're seeing the inside of each other's homes. We're seeing one another's pets and families and plants. And we're also seeing each other's emotions. And that's weird, right? That's not normally something that is encouraged in the workplace. But people want leaders who are authentic and who are real. And if you don't believe me, you don't have to. I have a massive, massive research report that we did on this topic, and I could truly fill an entire webinar on just that subject alone and the research to back it up. But I will summarize that basically people want authenticity in a crisis, and then they want the actions to back it up. So they want leaders to be real, but they also want leaders to back up what they say with actions that reinforce that. And that means that those of us in leadership positions are really going to have to do something that a lot of us don't want to do, and that's to be vulnerable. In our business culture, men are taught not to show emotion and to maintain this facade of masculinity, which is also often equated with power. Women are taught not to show emotion because it makes them feel weak or shrill. We are all trained to cover up how we feel. And often that prevents us from making genuine, real connections with consumers. But it also ignores so many of the unique trends happening right now. A desire to connect with people, a desire to support and know local businesses, to feel like you know and understand them and you're helping not the business, but the people who work at that business, and a desire to show your personal pride in where you're from and to help shape what you want your community to be. So, my friends, it is time to share your feelings with someone other than your therapist. And it's really uncomfortable for a lot of us. Send a genuine personal note out to your clients. Do a Facebook Live video, host an Ask Me Anything on Instagram, or frankly, just give out your phone number or your email and ask your customers or clients to reach out if you can help, or if they just need support, or if they have a question. Make yourself available, both in practice and personally. And I recognize that this does come with a cost, right? We're already all carrying a burden. And yet, Karen Stoffel of Render Studios, she once gave me some of the most powerful advice I've ever received in business years ago, and I have held this with me pretty much the entire time I've been a business owner. And she told me that there's power in vulnerability. And now is that time to be vulnerable, share with your customers and clients that you're struggling. Show them your worries and how much you genuinely care about your people and about your business. Show them how you're trying to help. Show them how hard you are working to do everything you can to take care of your people and to continue to serve the customers and clients that you care about. Ask people to support them or to support you, and tell them how and say thank you. Ask people to be a part of creating the community that they want to exist in the future, and tell them that you want to be a part of that. Eat that slice of humble pie, share your struggle, and see the amazing connections and support that can come out of that when people share their struggles too. Because truly, none of us are in this alone. We are all facing struggles as a part of what is happening right now. And if you really want to connect, you have to be willing to actually connect. Okay, so now that we have that grossness over. We're done talking about our feelings. We can go ahead and just box those right back up again. The last thing you need to think about when it comes to connecting, when all of this is quote unquote over, which is likely going to be in phases and stages over a very long time. This is a long game. This is a long game. It's a long game. My favorite phrase, right? So whether you're sending emails out, you're connecting with people on social media, you're offering a free product or service, think about how and when you'll connect when it feels appropriate to do so down the road to really ramp back up with your commerce, with opening a physical location, with transitioning people from free, philanthropic, community-driven pro bono support back into revenue-producing activities. Make sure that as you're doing all of this real, genuine connecting, that you are also collecting contact information from any partnership or promotional program that you're working on. Ask people to sign up for email updates. Encourage people to take the necessary steps to see you in their social feeds, which sounds weird and is different on every platform. Google's a beautiful thing. It'll tell you just how to do this, but teach people who are online a ton right now how to make sure they're seeing your information and that you are staying top of mind for them. Enhance your postal mailing list. If you're doing the hard work of connecting, make sure that you've built out the systems to stay connected when you're not in front of them in this same way anymore. And this can feel very like duh, but it always shocks me how many businesses miss those little opportunities to stay connected by not having a means to directly connect with their customers, clients, friends, and ambassadors. So build the systems that will let you stay connected with people as you're providing them support, comfort, services, advice, and all of those innovative, new, and different ways of doing what you do that you've figured out. And in that spirit of connection, here you go. Please let me know if I can help at all or if there's anything that I can do, or also if you just need to chat. And with that, we want to make sure that we leave some time for your questions and some specifics about how to connect. So thank you. And we'll open it up for Q&A now.
Thank you so much, Kate. We appreciate all of the information, and it's just such a great way to think about business today. You know, businesses have made such a shift over the last, 4 to 6 weeks, moving content online, completely rethinking their engagement strategies. Once all of this dust kind of settles, what do you hope, what changes do you hope kind of stick?
Oh boy, what changes do I hope stick? I hope that the people over profits mentality that we're seeing right now sticks. I hope that this innovation and this challenge to think of how we can do things differently sticks. And that so many of us that have been spurred to do things that we've thought about doing for years, like little things. I've thought about taking us to a fully paperless financial system. Little things, right? But right now, when my 11 people are spread out across 11 different homesteads, printing out paper receipts isn't a thing anymore. So guess what? We're finally, after 2 years of researching products and tools and services, moving to a fully paperless financial system that I'm sure my bookkeeper is like really, really happy about. So, I hope that this innovation, this forced innovation sticks a little bit. And I hope that this desire to be connected sticks. The cognizance of our privilege, the perspective that much of this has brought of who we appreciate in our society, right? Be they teachers or grocery workers or the people that clean up after us. I hope that the human side of things sticks, um, and that people are able to be there for one another for the years of trauma and recession and pain that people are going to go through as a result of the economic fallouts, the loss of life, the loss of security, that false sense of security we all had. So that was kind of like waxing poetic. It was not like, oh, I hope that Facebook stays. But I really do kind of like, I hope the bigger things stay, and that, as many of those businesses that we all love and cherish locally are still here. And we, there are those of us in positions of privilege that can help ensure that that happens, while others are struggling and aren't in a position to buy a gift card or, shop local.
So we had a really good question in here. Obviously a lot of the engagement has been more virtual, but not all customers consume content virtually. So how do you engage with customers who maybe are not traditionally that tech savvy?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. Um, One of the things that we've been finding really helpful is, honestly, one of the services that we can provide to people is to help them understand technology. And so teach people how to use the technologies. It requires a remarkable amount of patience, but there are so many tools and resources out there that you can share with people, so help people to understand what technologies there are and help teach them how to use the technologies so that they can stay more connected. And then it's okay to go old school, send a note, send a handwritten note to someone, pick up the phone, and call someone. We are all needing connection right now, and sometimes that means blurring some of those personal professional lines, and texting with clients that feels weird and you wouldn't normally do, but if it's a way to stay connected with them, and a lot of it does depend on your sort of your model, right? Your volume of clients, and for a service business, picking up the phone or something like that is a little different. But even for like retail, restaurant, are like salons and those kind of businesses that are really hurting right now. Who are your top spenders? Who are your biggest clients? Who are the ones that have been with you the longest? Call them, check in on them, see how they're doing. You might not be able to help fix their roots right now, but you may be able to just say, we miss you. How you doing? You okay? It does not and should not be a sales call, right? Like, this is about maintaining relationships and just letting people know that you're thinking about them. If sales happen as a result of it, that's great. But this is about strengthening locally based relationships in the long term and building a type of loyalty that is going to outlast what's happening right now.
Perfect. Another really good question. As companies are continuing to share content and share messaging online, obviously things are, very tense right now, and the situation is, just very stressful. How would you offer some advice for companies to maybe handle some, criticism or comments or things, some less than pleasant online engagement?
Come back to your values. What are your values? Are you living those values? Is what you're doing and saying consistent with those values? And if it is, simply re-articulate those values in the face of criticism. Don't get into a pissing match with anyone. That doesn't ever help. But also don't delete genuine criticism. If you did something and it wasn't consistent with your values, it was just again, as you like loosen things up and perhaps let other people help with communications, you may have some snafus. This is a time when we need to offer unprecedented grace and ask for unprecedented grace. And so if you did something that wasn't as sensitive as it should have been, and it did come across the way that you wanted it to, just say that. Yeah, we're sorry, we screwed that one up. Thanks for helping us do better. And I think that as long as you're living those values and your values are consistent with your customers, then great, good. If there are some, there are some sort of like line in the sand issues for a lot of companies, and if that means that ends a customer relationship, that's something that each business owner has to grapple with on their own. But I mean, for me, that's a part of why we have values, right? Like if someone says, well, we don't want to support your company because you guys are, all wearing that woman from Michigan t-shirts, well, then that's probably a sign that we weren't going to be a great brand alignment fit to begin with. And that is super hard to accept at a time when we're all super worried about revenue. Super hard to accept. But again, in the long run, building loyalty, building genuine connection is about having genuine connection.
Well, and it stems from your core values, right?
Absolutely.
You had talked a lot about focusing, on kind of small business and local. How would you maybe give some advice to some companies who have customers all over the world? How do you kind of embrace this love local message on a little bit of a more international scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a lot different for larger businesses or businesses that are that do have like that global customer base. You do lose that like local pride angle or aspect. Some of the things you can do is showcase and highlight that in your different either like places of operations. So like, yeah, this is how we're doing things in Lansing, but this is how our Columbus team is faring, and this is how our Duluth team is faring, and this is how they're getting involved to help in their communities. You could look at where your primary customer concentrations are and make sure that you're doing things in those communities that are supportive, whether they cost you anything or whether they are just ways to connect and be connected. But that, that for companies that have a more spread out customer base, turning to more of just letting them get to know people on a whole and know who you are and what you're about, and a little bit less about the place-based stuff. I would say shift your content strategy a little bit. If a majority of your customer base comes from outside of either like the local area or even, Michigan, right? Like you can have that Michigan pride and be a business, that's kind of where we're at. The majority of our clients are within Michigan and the Midwest, but not necessarily in the Lansing area. So while we have immense amounts of Lansing pride, we also have a lot of Michigan pride. And that's reflective of that same thing that a lot of our customers and clients are. But, that's not the case for everyone. And so if geography isn't a source of connection, and that's really kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at, if geography isn't a source of connection, then focus on other sources of connection with people.
And as folks are, launching different, messaging campaigns and different initiatives, if they're not seeing the connections or the results that they were hoping to garner out of that campaign, how would you have them, reevaluate and re-execute? I mean, what's kind of the strategy now to understanding these different concepts and these initiatives and how they're working or not working in the market?
I kind of have sort of two answers to this. The first one is to listen. Like, make sure that you're vetting things through different people with different perspectives than your own. If people are criticizing you and it's valid criticism, it's not just criticism that's a disagreement with your values, but it's a criticism that perhaps you're not actually serving, or you're not listening, or you're leaving people out, or things like that. Like, listen, don't get defensive. Listen, learn, reach out to those people and say, hey, we want to do better. Can you help? Like, talk to us. Although we do want to be conscious that we're not placing the burden of fixing our own foibles on other people. But do listen, do vet things through people that are outside of your bubble, your household bubble, and try to get different perspectives and opinions on things, and do your best to evolve and adapt. But the other thing is, if it's not like quote unquote performing, performance is really difficult to measure right now, right? Like, because we can't look at historical trends. We can't look at like, oh, well, how did we do during this time period last year, or the last 3 years, the last 5 years? Like, performance, depending on what it is you're trying to measure and evaluate, is very difficult right now. Something, you may be getting great engagement, things may be connecting, but it might not be leading to transactions. Well, that could be because people are afraid to spend money. People are furloughed. People, don't have disposable income right now. And even the best communications can't overcome that. So it is hard to assess like why something might not be working. But I think if you're vetting, if you're asking questions and you're genuinely listening, you'll have a little bit better sense of the why behind it. But right now, you just have to live with some unknowns, and that sucks really bad. But you may not know why it's not clicking right now, because we are in unprecedented times. There is an overabundance of communication, right? So watch what others are doing too, and observe what feels consistent with your brand values and what you like feels ucky, and do what you can to emulate the things that feel consistent with your brand values and resonate and click with you. Do what you can to avoid what feels ucky, but also make sure you're kind of like, you're testing that with not even just your team, because your team is probably part of your echo chamber. You might test that with some trusted clients. You might test that with some people in other industries, just to see like, does this come across as predatory? Does this come across as like just too self-promotional? We've all gotten those emails. Do you know what I mean? Like, the phone call that comes through to sell something, and you, despite the fact that you yourself are selling a product or service, you think like, not now, like, wrong crowd. And so like, make note of those things and learn what you can from them, and then listen when people try to give you feedback.
We've talked a lot about kind of engaging, what are the maybe engaging or finding, new avenues or new clients. What would you say would be maybe your top 3 to-do items with current clients? How should you be communicating with them, connecting with them, doing the right things now so that that relationship remains steady throughout?
Yeah. Top 3.
Or whatever.
Yeah, no. Make sure that you're reaching out to them individually if possible. If not, in the most individual as possible way that you can. So if that's sending a personal postcard, giving a phone call, sending an email, like an email, not a blast email, trying to connect with people personally if you can. That's primarily, like I said, I think going to be most relevant for service-based businesses. For retail, restaurant, connecting with people through social media or more mass media channels like email, but sending a personal message that shares that gratitude for them, that business owner vulnerability, and that desire to live your values, and that shares your values and how they can be a part of that. That would be number 1. Do something that connects directly with people and shares your values. Number 2, would be figure out a way to give people something that you feel like you can't give them right now and that they want in a different way. Just, like it's so hard because it's so specific, like situation by situation, but whatever it is that people want from you, figure out how you can give that to them. Brainstorm, crowdsource. I'm not joking when I say ask your kids. There's like a TED talk about the marshmallow experiment or marshmallow exercise, something like that. That is this exercise that people do with spaghetti noodles, scotch tape, string, and a marshmallow, where they try to build a structure. And the tallest structure wins, and the structure has to have the marshmallow on top. And one of the top performing groups of people in building these structures across the board after engineers and architects, which is reassuring, is kindergartners, because they don't think laterally. And what most people do when they build this structure is they move in like a linear way. They start with the base, they move toward the top, and then at the very end, they put the marshmallow on top, and it's too heavy and it crumbles. Well, the kids, they just like cobble it all together. And then like the marshmallow's been a part of it the whole time. So like truly go where you can for ideas, and don't poo-poo something as impossible. Like, just why not? Try it. See what you can do. So my second piece of advice would be to figure out, how do you give people what they've come to expect, what they're missing, what they want, what will provide them comfort and connection, even if it looks different. And if you're a restaurant and they can't come in and eat with you, like, can you do a Zoom background that they can get takeout and then do a Zoom with their friends and pretend like they're in your restaurant? Can you do a live feed of like just your empty inside of the restaurant and people can pretend that they're there? What can you do to help simulate your whatever it is that people are missing about you, or what people have come to expect from you? And the third thing I would say, I fail miserably at this, but try to take care of yourself as a leader. You cannot care for your employees, care for your business, care for your family if you're a burned out hot mess. And I think a lot of us feel like we are that right now. And so do what you can to try to feed your own soul. I think for a lot of us right now, or at least I'll speak for myself, like it feels selfish to do that, right? Like it feels like I'm taking things away from my employees, and that is not something I want to do. But you have to just think about how you can, you just have to. So the third thing has nothing to do with communications, but if you don't do that, it's going to be harder to communicate, especially because a lot of this is going to fall onto the shoulders of the owners, the managers, and the leaders in those organizations.
And that's a great point. I mean, through all of this, we've, focused on, supporting so many people, and we can't forget to make sure that our own selves are on that list as well. So that's a great point.
And, you've just got to give yourself the grace to be imperfect, and like, it's okay to be a little selfish. Like, it's okay to say, I need to do something for myself that's not work for even, give yourself 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming amount of time, but you gotta do it. I think we all see what happens when we don't, we see, you can feel it when it's happening. And logically that you should, but then another email comes in or another fire breaks out, and you just, well, I'll do that later, and you never do.
Well, we've just about exhausted our hour here, which is great. We've just got a couple minutes. So, I mean, if you maybe want to just throw in one kind of final thought, one little final, you know, pep talk for the Greater Lansing region, by the end of the day or by the first part of tomorrow, we'll send a follow-up email with a video link to the presentation, a copy of Kate's presentation, contact information, and all that good stuff. So, Kate, why don't you leave us with your final thought here?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is just that this is a chance to rethink our relationships with our clients and our customers. And I know for so many of us, it really does feel, it feels like this is sink or swim, and I'm not going to be naive, and I'm not going to try to like end on a falsely sugary note that everyone's going to be okay. But I do know everyone is going to try their hardest. And I think that in making the effort to connect, that those of us in leadership positions and all throughout companies, I hope that the leaders will share this with everyone at every level of their companies, that they'll see that vulnerability and that connection reciprocated. And I hope that when that reciprocity happens, when you get that email that says thank you so much, or when you get that social media post, that you find a way to share it with your team so that they too can see that they're appreciated, that there is a real connection there, and that there is a mutual support, a mutual pride, and a mutual appreciation for one another.
Very, very well said. We will wrap this up on that note. Everybody have a wonderful day. As Kate said, take a few minutes for yourself. Get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. Make sure to support your favorite local small business. And have a wonderful Monday, everybody. Thank you.